Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Military Mondays. If you and I don't know each other, I am retired Major Brenda Sanchez, and I am the co-founder of Life's Real Currency with my husband, Michael Sanchez, and we help businesses retain those precious clients so that they don't end up out the door, back door to their competition. And I bring you these Military Mondays every single Monday morning at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, like clockwork, just like in the military. And if you are a business owner who is a veteran or the spouse of a veteran, I would love to have a conversation with you because I would like to maybe feature you on a future show. But without further ado, I would like to introduce my guest today. Howard and I met a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, through networking, through online networking with the craziness that's going on in the world right now. It has opened up businesses to be able to do business across the United States if you're capable. And so he and I met on an online networking, and I was extremely impressed with him and what he offers, and wanted to get the word out about him and what he offers to veterans and civilians in that. So welcome to my show, Howard. Thanks for being on this morning.
Oh, thank you, Brenda. Pleasure to be with you this morning.
So tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, this is a Military Mondays. You were military, Navy, right?
I was Navy, yep. And, in my past life, I was actually a dentist for 16 years. So in my case, the Navy paid for dental school. So I owed years back as a dentist. So I did, in my military time, I did 1 year at Great Lakes in Chicago. And then I did 3 years in southern Japan, Sasebo, Japan, if people know where that is. If you don't, Nagasaki is the closest town that people have heard of. That was about 40 miles away. Never in my wildest dreams did I have any inclination to be in the Far East, and then to live there for 3 years was an amazing experience. So, I did my 4 years. I served my time. I told the Navy I was getting out. They said, okay, where do you want us to move your stuff? And I was married at the time. We looked at a map and said, Austin, Texas sounds good. And that's how I ended up here 14 and a half years ago.
Awesome. And so you were a dentist in the service, got out after 4 years. And what did you do on the outside? What did you do when you retired or got out of the service?
Yeah, when I got out of the service, I still continued practicing dentistry, bounced around for a little bit until I opened up my own place in 2009. I had that for 9.5 years, but dentistry can be a little bit of a lonely profession. And don't get me wrong, there were some times that it was wonderful in helping people, but there was also just a lot of frustration with it. And someone wasn't up on their hygiene and they came in pain and they came out in pain, they would still blame you. And it just, that aggravation just started to wear on me. I wasn't happy, and I was taking it out on the people around me that love me. I'm not going to say that my divorce was because of dentistry, but it certainly held a factor in it. And so late 2016, I was just starting to get burnt out, but still didn't know where to go or what to pivot. And Brenda, sometimes life leaves you little clues to move in a certain direction. For me, life did a 2x4 right between the eyes. May of 2018, my older son, I have two boys that are now 15 and 12. My older son came home with a stomach ache. And 3 days later, we're at the ICU in the Children's Hospital here in Austin, having emergency surgery. It ended up being appendicitis that turned septic. And he was in the hospital for 29 days. He was in the ICU for 19 of them. He was sedated for 8 days because he had to go in and out of the operating room 5 times.
Wow.
Yeah, and still gives me chills in terms of thinking about it. But the moment, that 2x4 moment, was After the sedation is done, they finally take the tube out of his throat. He's coming down from the drugs. It's a Sunday morning of Memorial Day. He realizes I'm sitting next to him, and he says, "Dad," with as much strength as he can, which was just above a whisper. And I say, "Yeah, bud." And I lean over the bed and I put my ear right over his mouth to make sure I can hear him. And he says 3 words I'll never forget. "Am I dying?" Now, we just went through hell. And that's his first question he asked me. And so my first breath was, did I just hear him correctly? My second breath was, do not lose your blank right now. And I look him square in the eyes and I just say, no, you're not dying. You've had prayers from thousands of people all around the world and you're going to be just fine. He looked at me and he knew that I was telling him the truth. And so he closed his eyes to get more rest. His mom took his hand. I went outside and then I broke. And it just all flooded together in terms of, if life is this fragile and I'm unhappy on the path that I'm on, and I've got a girlfriend and we're still together now, that I see an example of someone that actually enjoys what she does. She or he, doesn't matter. It's just another person, but they're in my life. Burn the ships. It's over. It's over. And so that's what I did. I sold my practice in September of 2018, walked away from a dental chair. No regrets.
Wow. That's, I mean, it was a wake up call for sure. And, you and I talked about this when we did the pre-interview, that life tends to throw us curveballs, or we get hit over the head with a brick when we won't listen to what we're supposed to be doing, or where we're being guided, whatever you want to call that guidance. And I've had a few of those in my life, and so have you. And so you pivoted and you said, okay, I'm done with dental. Now you've got all of that experience from the military, not just dental, but leadership and skills that you learned. What did you do from there?
Yeah, well, one, I just had a lot of time to think, and I want to finish just one other point because I don't want to leave the audience hanging of, is your son okay now? Because I tend to leave that part out. Um, yes, he's totally fine. He just has some really awesome scars now. So we can close that loop. Um, it just gave me a lot of time to think. And you sometimes hear from people that are now billionaires that they just have thinking time, and you just sit there and you're like, what in the hell are they talking about? And it's when you are constantly on the go, you just don't have time for creativity. And so I I don't overschedule my days on purpose, because you just need that downtime for your brain to start to think of new ideas and start to say, God, maybe this other thing could work. Or, if you're looking at a potential investment, if you're an investor of some sorts, it's like, I need to sit down and analyze and really absorb, like, can I see 3, 5, 10, 15 years out that this company is still going to be dominant, or are they going to go under and I just can't tell? Um, and so that's the first thing that I did when I pivoted, was just had that free space to say, what's next? What it turned into is the following. As I was transitioning out, I was sitting with an acquaintance of mine who was another dentist, and he asked me just what you did, like, what are you going to do now? And how are you walking away? And I made some dumb comment like, well, I figured out how to make money move. And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? And so I explained these basic concepts to him, and he's like, okay, interesting. I think I get it, but I'm buying a house next month. I want you to be my coach. I said, okay. In the rules in Texas, we had to wait a few months before I could actually help him. But I said, yeah, sure. I'll be your coach. A couple weeks went by. I get in the mail my next house payment, and I take a picture of it and I text this guy. I say, hey, take a look at this. Brenda, my house payment was $24.19.
Wow.
not $2,400, $24. And he texts back and he's like, I see it. I don't understand how you can have a $24 house payment. Like, you have to be my coach. I said, fine. And what ended up happening is he was going to do the standard 30-year mortgage. I said, look, with your income as strong as it is, you should be able to pay this off in 4 years. Well, he doesn't do that. He pays it off in 8 months.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, my heart is telling me this is where I need to go. This can be super impactful for a ton of people. Let's go into this. And so that's what I've been doing. Is that 2020 was kind of my quote unquote first year of doing this. And I knew, especially when the pandemic came, I was like, this is the year of planting seeds. I cannot expect anyone to come on board with me, but if I can just keep on talking to enough people, just put one foot in front of the other, just keep trudging along, eventually the sprouts will come. And so that's what I did. That gentleman was the first client. He told his business partner, who was the second client. I told another friend, who was my third client. All of them have had massive success in terms of me coaching them. And so, I know you're going to ask, what is a cash flow coach? So let me sum it up in one sentence. I dramatically improve people's personal cash flow so they do not have to take on second or third jobs. And if you're going to put that into numbers, usually I can find within your current expenses over $2,000 a month on average, and you could be debt free usually in 10 years.
Wow. And this really you've been doing this for years, because obviously you were an officer in the Navy, you had people come to you. So you've been kind of doing this for years, and it just finally sprouted, as you said, into a business. It blossomed into a business because people finally said to you, I want you to be you need to really teach me how to do this.
I always enjoyed personal finance, but in terms of the kind of definition of a financial advisor and picking stocks, bonds, mutual funds, it just didn't sit well with me in terms of having that much risk and responsibility with other people's money. I always wanted to try and find something where I was like, look, I hate to say the word guarantee, but I can guarantee you that your cash flow is going to be improved, period, because it's just math. And so, yeah, when I first bought a house back in 2006, I wish I knew this. When I finally heard about this 10 years later, I'm like, oh my God, I would have been so much farther ahead. Of course, you always look back and say hindsight's 2020, but even without that, I'm just like, forget all the stupid investments that I made. It's just like, just having that would have made a massive difference to the point of hundreds of thousands, if not probably well over $1 million difference between where I am now and where I could have been.
Wow. So we could talk about this for hours. You and I had a big, long conversation the other day, and Howard gave me some tips that I'm excited to implement. So what is one piece of advice you'd give somebody, it could be civilians too, but especially somebody that's in the service, considering getting out in 3 to 5 years? What piece of advice would you give them to set themselves up for success when they either separate or retire?
Great question. So this is for someone that's already in the service. We're not talking about someone who's thinking of going into the service.
Right now, I'm just talking about those of our fellow veterans or our fellow military that are currently serving, that are close to getting out, or 3 to 5 years from retirement or separating.
Okay. So I got to go back to living in Japan, because I know some of your questions were, what did you really get out of the military experience? And so this is really what I got out of living in Japan. Life really can be very, very simple. And what I mean by that is, I did not speak the Japanese language. So, I mean, yeah, I learned a few phrases, toilet wa, like doko desu ka, where's the toilet? Because that was important. Or, I knew how to order my beer, I knew how to order my sushi. But um, but when I'm walking around the shopping area, I had no idea what they were marketing to me. I had no clue. It could have looked like some sort of, iPod at the time. I wouldn't have had a damn clue of what the thing was because they couldn't communicate with me. And so when you strip away all of the marketing, you get down to really what's important. Okay. So really the first thing is try and simplify your life because you don't need all the stuff. You really don't. And when you can strip that out, I'm not saying like don't enjoy experiences because that really it's the experiences, not the stuff that makes up life. Um, but when you really center it to when are the most critical, the happiest times that you've had, it's never a thing that you bought. It's always an experience that you had, whether it's with a person, with a place, that's what matters. Number two is having, you know, employers are going to be impressed that you were in the military because of the discipline that you should have, especially if you have been in for 10, 12, 15, 20 years. There is a discipline that's ingrained that you don't realize how important that is, especially in this day and age. And so do not be embarrassed by having that discipline. And yeah, so I know those are the two big things that I would walk away with.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to share? We'll give the contact information at the end and I'll have you put it in the chat. But anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to share today?
Uh, I will touch on if someone is thinking about the military, what what would I utilize it for? And I kind of have the same idea in terms of college these days. And that is go in to the military. I mean, I hate to kind of say it this way. They are going to use you.
Yep.
They are. I mean, but it's an exchange. So make sure that you use what the military can give you and go in with the mindset of getting a skill that translates once you're out of the military. Okay. I went into the military with the skill of dentistry, and it was an exchange of they paid for dental school, which back then was roughly $200,000 for 4 years.
Wow.
And in exchange, I had patients to work on and I had time to build up my skills and get the experience I needed to feel comfortable once I transitioned out. And so, you know, look at the military of a way, how can I have a skill, a valuable skill that does translate out into the working world? So you were Air Force, immediately you think of aircraft. And so an aircraft mechanic is a skill set you can learn in the Air Force. And yes, I know travel is way, way down, but there are still airplanes and there are people that need to work on those airplanes. And so that translates over. You know, cybersecurity is another good one. Go in there, get your Department of Defense credentials, and then you have the potential of picking whatever you want when you get out into the working world. So that's what I would, for anyone that's strongly considering of going in, think of the skill set you want to come out with.
That's a great advice because I got into the service for very similar to you. They paid for you to go to school. They paid for my last 2 years of college. I had an ROTC scholarship, full tuition scholarship, and I looked at it as a way to come out with a job and learn skills. I ended up retiring after 27 years, but at the time I was looking at it as a way to just have a job and have experience for 4 years that I could take someplace else or continue on in the military. So great advice. Thank you so much for being on today. How do people reach you, Howard?
Yeah, real easy. Howard at cashflowcoachusa.com. Same website, www.cashflowcoachusa.com. Just email me and then leave your phone number. I'll give you a call. We'll chat. Just doesn't have to be about cash flow coaching. Can just be about anything. So yeah, I'm pretty accessible.
Yeah, awesome. I know that you offer a free kind of one-on-one or consultation, just to get to know you and to kind of learn a little bit behind the scenes of the strategies you do so that people can decide if that's the right fit. So if you're struggling with money right now, or maybe you're not, and you've done really well with money, but you're like, wait a minute, what's Howard talking about? How did he have a $24 mortgage payment? I highly encourage you to reach out to him because he's got some really cool ideas, and they aren't shady or anything. It's all legit. I promise. I've been fairly financially savvy my entire life, with my dad being a New York State auditor and that. So I'm super impressed with Howard. I've already sent him several referrals, so I highly recommend him. So if you need some help with your cash flow and figuring out how to have more month than money, or more money than month, that's what I meant to say. If you have more month than money, talk to Howard so that he can teach you how to have more money than month. So thanks again, Howard. If you are a military member or a veteran that has their own business, I'd love to have a conversation with you. If you found value in this interview, please share it with your network so that we can get the word out about Howard and about Military Mondays, so that I can get the word out about veteran business owners. So thanks again, everyone, for tuning in today. And I look forward to seeing you next Monday on Military Mondays. Bye, everyone.